You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Myles Teteak, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans that just love talking about the Pack. We are not getting into all the national sports media nonsense. We're sticking to real football. We're diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season, and now sorting through all of the draft dreams and drama of the offseason. If y'all want to support the pod, please spike that like button for us. Most importantly, jump on over to YouTube, type in Packers Talk Network. Network gets you where you want to go. Hit that subscribe button for us. It will do us a great deal of help. It'll help other Packers fans find us, and it'll help us find other Packers fans. So please invite a friend on over, even if they're from other NFC North teams. We like talking a little smack to them. That's all right. A lot of Bears fans talking smack these days on the social medias, and all sorts of discourse going on we're having fun with. But most importantly, we are talking about the Pack. So tonight, we got some fun stuff to get into, diving into the offensive depth chart a little bit, getting a little surgical with it, talking a little bit about the Christian Watson contract extension. Overpaid, not overpaid, good deal. What do we got here? What do you guys think? We're going to talk about that and just a few updates from OTAs as well. But first, of course, our show is once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as Bucks tickets, Brewers tickets, all them tickets. Summerfest coming up. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com, or you can visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Remember, support all those local businesses, Wisconsin and otherwise. Tim, good evening, sir. How we doing?
Good evening. Happy minicamp week to you, Myles. How are you?
Yes, minicamp week. I'm good, man. We still got real football on the field with the Packers running around, so I can't be bad about that.
It's happy minicamp to all those who celebrate whatever your minicamp celebrations are. This is the week for it. Next week is OTA week for the few Packers that will still be in town. The young players will be in town for that one, and then it's break until training camp. But yeah, that's what we got going on. It's minicamp week, and there was some big news before minicamp week last week that we, didn't get a chance to talk about. We will tonight, and that's the Christian Watson extension. How you feeling about that?
All right. Let's dive straight into that one, because I know that this is a little bit of a polarizing topic. Some people, he's overpaid. He's never had over 650 yards. I'm over it. I'm over the negativity around Watson. I think if you watch the man on the field, it seems obvious. And I like it. I like the deal. They didn't guarantee too much. He got a nice little chunk of cash up there up front. It's good. He'll have a fun payday and enjoy that. But I think that the way the deal was structured, at least the way it seems, is fair for both sides. Acknowledges that, hey, man, there's a little bit of risk on the Packers side with the injury history, but at the same time, I think it shows that they have seen him overcome it. They like what they've seen when he's on the field. The soft tissue injuries are years behind him now. Anybody can tear an ACL. I don't think anybody's prone to tearing ACLs. I don't think that's how that works. But yeah, I like it. I think it's a good deal, especially compared to some of these other deals you've seen happen. Most recently, Drake London got a pretty big payday.
Yeah.
It seems like the most comparable deal was the Alec Pierce deal over there in Indianapolis. So I like it. I think it's a good value, and I do believe that the Packers can probably get more bang for their buck if he stays on the field and gives you his full potential. I think one of the, of course, the Bears fans have had a lot to say about this. They just love it. Oh, overpaid. What a terrible deal. All this, they want to throw Luther Burden out there and stuff like that. Whatever, man. The thing that I think is the biggest value with Christian Watson, and this is kind of the calculation that I ended up boiling this down to, is the touchdowns that he scores. And I look at it as on a per game basis, right? Like we're not talking about total volume because that's a different calculation, obviously with injuries and everything. But when you're looking at a per game basis, so the games that he has actually played, touchdowns per game, just compared to, like I said, the guys that we, most recently saw get paid, Christian Watson has 0.416 touchdowns per game. That may sound low because it's below 1, but nobody scores a touchdown per game. That's it's not happening. Even Devontae Adams doesn't have that number. But you look at the other guys, like I said, Alec Pierce, 0.265. So he's almost double Alec Pierce. Drake London, 0.354. So he's considerably above that. He's scoring points in the games that he plays at a higher frequency than most of his peers. So if you want to get into the other guys that are maybe kind of a higher benchmark, guys like Justin Jefferson are at 0.446. Okay, so he's just a shade under Justin Jefferson when it comes to touchdowns per game. When it comes to Devontae Adams, who's actually got a pretty high number of touchdowns per game, he's at 0.657. So you want to talk about a high bar, that's up there. I don't know who the highest is. I didn't go through and do all the numbers. I just kind of picked out the guys that are most notable. Bears fans, you guys want to throw Luther Burden at me? He's at a measly 0.13 touchdowns per game. So, spare me. Adunze is at 0.31. So again, significantly under where Christian Watson is. You win the game by scoring points, and Christian Watson is scoring points at a high clip per game that he plays. I'm a firm believer you'll get to see his first full season here this year. He seemed to come back from the ACL injury very strong last year. Not a lot of guys come back looking as strong or even stronger than they did beforehand, but he certainly did. So I love it. I love the move. And that doesn't even account for what he does to the defense when he's on the field for the other guys. When he's on the field, Tucker Kraft eats. Tucker Kraft is doing good. When he's on the field, Josh Jacobs does good. There's plenty of highlights. You can see him throwing blocks, springing touchdowns and big runs. So I definitely think that when he's on the field, the offense is just better. I think if you watch the games, you watch the football, you can see that with your eyes. But that's me, man. Am I a little bit? I can be on the optimistic side of things, enthusiastic for sure. Definitely biased towards the receivers and certain ones for sure. But what do you think, Tim? Where's your feeling at?
I was happy with it. I think it came in a little bit lower than what I was expecting the price to be, the average per year. And that's what you pay number one receivers now. And I know we can have the argument if he's a number one receiver. I think he showed when he came back last season that he is a number one receiver. And if you're just looking at the box score stats, then you're not really watching the games and you don't know football. Sorry. You don't. What he does for the offense, they're a completely different offense with him on the field. And that's been the way throughout his career. He opens up the deep passes. He makes his own plays. He helps his teammates. It opens up everything for their offense. The problem has been obviously that he's not on the field enough. And that's the one, negative to this, or that's the one risk in this is that he's had a history of injuries. We don't know what that's going to be. But you're paying him for what you hope he can be and what you think he can be, right? You're not paying him for past success. And they have belief in him. And I'm with that. Like, he's a leader. He does everything that you want as a receiver. He can get deep. He will block for you, which is an underrated part of his game. And he makes the players around him better. So I think the money is one thing. And I know it's, we're talking $27 million, but that's what receivers are getting paid now. That's kind of what the market is. Right. And if he stays healthy, and I know that's a big if, I think that contract would be very reasonable or a bargain for people. And if you include the year that he's already under contract, because this is an extension that kicks in 2027, it's really $22 million a year, which is like high-end number two receiver money nowadays. So it's really a bargain. Yes, you can throw out there the injuries. I understand that. But he's a damn good receiver, and he's a really important piece of this offense that the alternative is what? Let him walk? Don't pay him and let him walk? Okay, well, who's going to do that for your offense? You don't have that guy. We don't know what Matthew Golden is yet. And maybe Matthew Golden can do some of what Watson does, but he obviously doesn't have Watson's size, right? Like he's never going to be able to block like Watson. He's not going to be able to do some of the things like Watson can do. We hope he's another number one receiver, and maybe he will be, but he's not there yet. We already know Watson can be that guy. So, like, you need that receiver in your offense, and you see what he does for it, how much better he makes it when he's on the field. I think it's a contract worth giving him. I think it's an investment worth doing. And it's interesting, like the full contract details I haven't seen leaked out anywhere yet, but he's not getting the guaranteed money that some of these other guys, like Alec Pierce just got to re-sign with the Colts when he was headed towards free agency. He's not getting as much guaranteed money. I'm guessing a lot of it may be playing time incentives and stuff like that. Packers usually don't like give these huge bonuses down the line. It's usually, a 1 or 2 years. There's where your big money is. And then it's kind of like pay as you go and they can get out of it. Like they always structure their contracts like that. The only ones that get a little crazier are the quarterbacks, which that's quarterbacks. And that's a completely different thing than any other position. So, like, I'm not worried about the contract part of it, really. I don't think it's anything that's going to hurt them long term, or we're going to be sitting here in a couple of years and be like, man, he didn't produce, or he got hurt again, and here we are, and now they're really screwed. Like, they'll be able to work their way out of that contract if they have to. But if he stays healthy, I think we're going to be looking at that contract in a couple of years and being like, that's a pretty good bargain for what he is, what he means to the offense, and then where the receiver market is, because receivers are going to continue to get paid a lot of money. That's already established. Those guys are getting paid a ton, and it's going to continue. So that's the money part of it. The on-field part, he makes the offense completely different. And we saw that once he came back last year and was able to be healthy for the rest of the season. And what sucks is we never really saw him together with Kraft and with Jaden Reed, who got hurt. And then Jacobs was playing basically on one leg. Like, we just never got to see all that together, but hopefully we will see that in 2026. But I'm fine with it. Like, yes, it's a risk. And yes, I can't argue with his injury history. It is what it is. Like, he's been injured. I get that. But when he's on the field, he produces a lot. And if he's over those recurring soft tissue injuries, and I'm pretty sure they feel confident that he is, he should be available for them, right? Like, ACL injuries, they happen, unfortunately. We just saw Micah tear his ACL. Is anybody going to be like, well, need to walk away from Micah because he had an ACL tear? Nobody's going to say that.
No.
So if Watson can overcome those soft tissue injuries, which they feel confident, both the team and he feels confident they've solved those issues, he should be on the field more for them, a lot more for them. And we should be able to see the full potential of Christian Watson and the full potential of what Watson provides for the offense. And I think that'll be well worth the extension that they gave him.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'll give life to the other side of the conversation. Oh, that's a lot of money to pay a receiver. And I was one that brought this up whenever Alec Pierce got his deal. It's like, look, that seems like a hefty cap number for a position that the data doesn't necessarily say you have a good receiver, you win a Super Bowl, right? Like in the past, you can show a correlation to you have a top 10, top 5 defense, you have a top running game, you win a Super Bowl. You have a top quarterback, you win a Super Bowl. The receiver position just hasn't been that. And so how the market got to where it is, I don't know. I don't know, but it is where
I think it's changing. I think it's changing because you see like Smith and Jigba, like he was
Fair
awesome.
enough. Good point.
When the Rams won with Cooper Kupp, when the Eagles won with Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, like those are top dudes. Tyreek Hill, I know he was only there I think he only got one ring with them. Maybe he got two. I can't remember now.
I can't remember. It might have been.
Then they moved on and they still won without him. They had Kelsey, who's a tight end, but he's receiver, whatever you want to call him. He is technically a tight end, but he does a lot of receiver things. Like, so I get what your point is, like, but receivers are becoming way more important, I think, than they've ever been. So I think you need a lot of talent at that position. Do you need like a top 5 receiver to win every year? No, but I think you need a couple guys at that position. But I think you need one like alpha dog Maybe he doesn't catch 120 passes. Devontae Adams has caught a lot of passes. Caught a lot of passes for the Packers. He's caught a lot of passes for the Rams and the Raiders. He never won a ring, but I think you at least need a top guy that's kind of like your guy, your separator, your special playmaker. One of those just difference makers. I think it's changing a little bit.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that. And I think the point that you were kind of circling around there for me is you need the guy who completes your offense, and those examples you gave, those guys are all a little bit different. Tyreek was just a speed freak down the field. You got Kelsey, who's, not necessarily an impressive athlete, but guy gets open, he finds grass. He's impossible to defend in a lot of ways. In Jigba, you got Cup. All those guys are guys that seem to unlock the offense for those offenses. And Christian Watson, to me, definitely fits that mold. He unlocks the Packers offense when he is on the field. And that, to me, yeah, I think based on the market, yeah, it's a good deal. Again, I don't know if I agree as far as the percentage of the salary cap that receiver position is worth that much, but that's what the market says. If Alec Pierce is getting that and Drake London is getting that, yeah, Christian Watson gets that, man. Like that's for sure. I don't know that, like to your point, if you let him walk, who are you replacing him with? I mean, he's a freak. There's not many guys out there that size and with his willingness and ability to block, in addition to everything else, and speed and ability, there's just not a lot of them. And so it's not like you're going to go out there and let him walk and replace him in free agency or replace him in the draft. I just don't see it. So yeah, I think that you pay that price. And to the point, I think they got a good deal here. I think both sides got a good deal as far as, look, Watson still got paid. He got a $31 million signing bonus. That's a sweet deal there. Anybody going to be mad about getting a $31 million check in the mail? I don't think so. You're going to be pretty pumped about that. So he gets that. They get to say, hey, thank you, and we believe in you. And that's, to me, what that signing bonus represents. And then from there out, you earn it, right? You earn the deal. And if he plays to his potential, there's another deal coming. Like that's going to happen in a couple years because he's still young. He's in that category of leadership where he could definitely earn another contract with the team if he's able to stay on the field and play to his full potential. But yeah, I think, when you're trying to stabilize the offense around Jordan Love, you got to have this guy. Otherwise, you got to rebuild the offense. The offense has to be built around something else. And that was kind of the theme of the episode today is, what's the problem here? And to me, it's identity. This offense has an identity issue, and we can dive into that as we go through the depth chart. There's been a lot of potential that we've talked about over the last couple of years, and it's been wrecked by injuries and this and that and some bad luck here and there. And then certainly there's been some play calling complaints that we've had with LaFleur and the way that he's done the game. But yeah, I think the real issue is an identity crisis. And if you're going to fix that, you need to stabilize around Jordan Love. And I think that's what they're doing with this extension with Christian Watson. You're stabilizing things. You already got Reed with his extension. You got Ryan with his extension, stabilizing the center position. They're really starting to keep the same bodies around him year in and year out. And that's important. That's really, really, because Jordan Love's the guy. Like, I don't think anybody's got any questions at this point. Well, is Jordan Love the guy? No, he's the guy. So what you've got to do is give him the best chance to succeed. And you do that by stabilizing it around him. So yeah, to me, this extension was a great deal for both sides. And I think it gives plenty of incentive, at least it seems like, for Watson to be on the field and to live up to it. But to your point, if he does in a few years, this looks like a bargain, especially the way the market's going. Guys like Drake London getting blockbuster deals, not to like throw too much shade at Drake London. He's good, but my goodness, like he's not that good. In my opinion, he's not an earth-shattering type receiver that should get like 30+ million a year. That's crazy. But when a guy like Justin Jefferson comes up, when Jamar Chase comes up, when Malik Neighbors comes up, like those are going to be some deals, man. Like, and who knows who's next? Like there's a pipeline of guys that are next. Yeah, I think this deal in 2 years could look awesome. It could look really good, and I think the front office has a better projection of that than we do, right? We don't get to necessarily understand the league-wide landscape of whose deals are coming up and what do you think that team is gonna pay those guys, and what is the market gonna be at a couple years down the road? I mean, one prime example of that in a different position was Micah Parsons. If the Cowboys had signed him to an extension 2 years ago when they should have, they would have paid significantly less than where the market's at, where it was last season when they had to trade him and they couldn't pay him. Jerry just didn't want to admit that. And, if you get it done earlier, you pay him less, but they didn't do it. They drug their feet, thinking that they were going to get a deal out of him, and that didn't happen. So I think that that's another thing is like, get this thing locked up now because the market's only going in one direction. It doesn't go
Yeah.
backwards. So that's, I think it's a great deal. But yeah, as far as the offense goes, we wanted to dive into the depth chart today. I do want to pump the brakes a little bit and go backwards to some OTA updates because we did just have some OTAs the last couple weeks as we go into minicamp this week. One notable thing for me, a couple. One, Colin Oliver's starting to look like Marshawn Lloyd to me. He's not playing now. I think it's a soft tissue injury, and now it's just like, okay, you don't exist until you do. I saw the flashes of potential last year in the one game that he played, and he kind of looked like a mini Micah is what they were sort of talking about. He's got that speed burst, that quick twitch, and getting those two on the field at the same time certainly could be a lot of fun. But now he's got a soft tissue injury, so it's sort of like I'm just stashing him in this category over here with Marshawn Lloyd, where it's like you're not real until you are. Until you're on the field, you're fake. You're not even on my depth chart. I'm very disappointed in that because I was excited about him. And then the other one that stood out to me is Burton, my guy, Jaeger Burton, getting some reps at right guard with the ones. Now, you and I were taking a look, and again, we're going to get into the depth chart, but beating out Belton may not be that big of a task for the rookie. And it looks to me like the coaches might be giving him every opportunity to do it. He obviously played predominantly center in college, and now he gets reps with the ones at right guard, which would be in direct competition with Belton. So that's one I've got my eyes up, man. I'm watching for him to beat Belton out at right guard.
Yeah, it's interesting. He did play guard in college, so he played all three interior spots. And I just saw there's a good story. Pete Doherty for Packers News wrote a story about Burton coming out of OTAs, which everybody should go read. It was pretty informative. But apparently, like they moved him around. His last season, he was at center, but basically, what their scheme in college at Kentucky was whatever position they were going to pull the most in the running game, that's the position that they wanted Burton to be the starter at.
Okay.
So that's why he played center this last year, because apparently they were pulling their center the most in the running game. But he was like their most trusted guy to be their pull blocker. So didn't know that, but that's a pretty cool fact. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, he's been getting through, the first couple of weeks of OTAs that were open to the media. He's been getting run with the ones. I thought it was also interesting that last week when he was at right guard with the ones, it was Belton at right tackle, not Kennard. So that's something to watch as well. Now it's OTAs. They don't have pads on. They're not really blocking a defense. It's so hard to judge what they're doing, but I think they're probably trying to accelerate Burton's readiness, get him up to speed with the playbook and with what they want to do from a blocking and technical fundamental standpoint, so that he's ready to hit the ground running at training camp and when the pads come on in training camp to see what he's got, because they need him. The depth is very thin and very questionable. Plus, he might just not just from a depth standpoint, but he might be a guy that's able to come in and get real playing time. Hell, he might, to your point, he might even be able to start early on in his career. You never know. But whether it's center or guard, I think we're going to see him a lot. We're going to see him getting a lot of reps in the preseason. We're going to see him going back and forth at both spots. And then I think it brings into, maybe it's not so much beating out Belton, where it could be more so them looking at Belton as being a versatile player, not just being like our plug and play right guard. Like if something happens at one of the tackle spots, and maybe Burton comes in at right guard and Belton is all of a sudden your tackle. Like maybe he moves ahead of Kennard as like your swing tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah, which hey, I'm fine with that too. Like, yes, I know they made a big investment, second round pick in Belton, but if Burton's good enough to take his job, so be it. Um, and maybe that's what Belton can do as, your swing tackle, your swing interior guard as well. Or maybe Belton's the starter, but they feel comfortable enough that hey, that Burton's our sixth guy, and if it's a guard or center that goes down, Burton's the first one in. If it's a tackle, Burton's coming in, and Belton's going to go play one of those tackle positions. So that could be the other thing too. Like he's competing with Belton, but in a way, he's kind of competing with Kennard and the other depth guys to be that first guy off the bench. But yeah, certainly interesting. He might be. We've talked about when's Cisse going to be ready to compete at corner? Can he take Valentine's job? Chris McClellan may have a decent sized role to start the season because they have a need on the interior. But it could be Burton, who is that rookie that kind of comes out of nowhere and all of a sudden he's starting or he's your sixth offensive lineman and he's stealing some snaps. We've seen this before with Packers and taking third day offensive linemen. Hell, I mean, Corey Linsley was a 5th round pick and he had to start at center. Now it wasn't by design. Treader got hurt in the preseason, but like he got the job and he got the job. He never gave it back.
Yeah.
So we've seen it. We've seen him do it many times with third day offensive lineman, and maybe Burton's the next one. But yeah, that was interesting too. That he's already, and that wasn't the first time. That wasn't the first practice where he was getting reps with the ones, which is something to keep an eye on throughout, minicamp this week, and then obviously going in the training camp.
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely keeping an eye out on that for minicamp to see if it keeps up. I don't know, kind of, we were tossing around the idea before. It seems like they like Ryan at center. So I don't know that I would expect him to be, competing in that area and, paying Banks as much as they're paying him. You got to believe that they are going to just will him into being the starting left guard come hell or high water. But it definitely seems like there's an opportunity for Burton to win that position at right guard and force Belton into that swing tackle kind of utility backup type guy. But certainly something to be watching throughout the rest of the offseason, or I guess early season of 2026. But yeah, so what other takeaways you got from OTAs?
I mean, the biggest one for me is just everybody was present and accounted for. Micah Parsons was there rehabbing, and he kind of said, I guess, what everybody was expecting. But I guess for me, at least, it was kind of refreshing to hear him kind of take a more, I don't want to say cautious, but like a more long-term outlook on his recovery. I almost felt like we were going to hear him say like, oh, I'm targeting week 1. I want to be back right away. And like, then it was going to be this whole saga throughout camp where they're like, the Packers are trying to slow him down and Parsons is trying to go. Like we've seen this with guys, whether it's in the NFL or other sports, where like they're trying to make the fastest recovery.
Right.
Great and all, but it's not always best for them. And it was nice to hear him come out and say like, nothing's happening. Like I'm not coming back until at least 9 months. Like 9 months is a hard deadline. There's nothing before that. And, he's talking about the goal is playoffs and to be ready long-term and to come back and be ready to go, not come back and, not be himself or suffer another injury because he came back too soon. And it was just refreshing for me to hear, like, don't rush yourself back. And he's doing great. And sounds like everything's going smoothly. He did reveal that he also had his meniscus cleaned up, which was not something that we had heard before. So, that's another part of his recovery, but that was good. Like, I don't want them to rush him back. I don't think they were necessarily going to, because the Packers are conservative and they're paying him a lot of money. And he's obviously hugely important to their future as a franchise. But you didn't want like that kind of like push from Parsons to get back sooner than what the Packers wanted to clear him for. So yeah, I mean, looking at the schedule, I know everybody's talking first Bears game, the Dallas game right after that, and that still makes the most sense, but I don't know. After hearing him, it might even be later than that. Like I still can't wrap my head around him missing that Dallas game, but just because personally it means a lot going against his former team. He saw him last year, but he still wants to play him again.
Especially at
So
Lambeau.
yeah, and I still think that those two games that, Bears and then Cowboys, that's got to be the target, but it may be even longer than that. And I think people need to just have patience with it. And, just we want him back and we want him to come back and be himself and then be on the field the rest of the season. Right. And so if it takes longer than that, we just got to accept it. And, it doesn't look like we're going to have Josh Sweat. But you never know. So
They're still kind of teasing that he might be traded. I think there's some posturing happening there.
Maybe. I mean, I might be closer to he might be getting traded at the deadline in October. We'll see. But yeah, it was reassuring to hear his comments. Other than that, from OTAs, I don't think there was a whole lot of newsworthy stuff. Jacobs was there, and I think that's kind of a sign of how they're going to play the situation out. Is that as long as he's available, he's going to be out there practicing until something changes with his status, whatever that may be. But until it does, he's going to be a part of it. And I don't think they're going to rush in anything with him until more comes out or more things happen. And that could be soon, or it could be months from now. Who knows? But yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot on the field that came out of it, but it was just nice to hear Micah's point of view. And so hopefully he's back at 100% when he's ready, and we don't have to, he's not rushing back, which is a good thing.
Well, I thought it was interesting, and I don't know if he said this or if this was something that was done in an interview later in an article or what, but I essentially caught wind that, they had done some research, right? He was researching a lot about the injury and the recovery and, sort of what are the significant steps, milestones, whatever it may be, what's the significant data behind, how other players have recovered. And that 9-month rule, apparently that's kind of the line where the guys who've tried to come back before that have just overwhelmingly not done well, right? Either got re-injured or not been the same player. The data was pretty strong before 9 months that not a good idea. So one thing that I want to shoot down is all these dramatic people. Oh, he's going to be out for half the season. We're not going to have Micah for most of the season. Stuff like that. It's like, shut up, stop. You're being so dramatic for the purpose of finding something to talk about in June. It's like, first of all, Micah's a freak. He is an absolute freak. Second of all, let's do some math here. He had the operation December 29th. 9 months from there would be the end of September 29th. So throw a day on there or so, right? He's practicing after week 3. He can practice after week 3. Well, because he can come back. If he starts on the PUP list, he can come back after 2 weeks. So that window opens up, call it October 1, right? You can in the middle of practice week before week 4. Now, that's not to say that's the game he comes back for, right? I think it's been made very clear that he's not going to come back immediately when he starts practicing. That's not what's going to happen. His brother was out there saying it's probably going to be 3 weeks at least of practice, which puts him back, if he can start practicing there, puts him back at week 6 against the Cowboys. I will back off of him being back for that Bears game. I do think that Cowboys game is the goal. I think that that's the goal. I do also think that once he starts practicing, because they keep using the term 100%, 100%. Once he starts practicing, I think he's going to feel 100%. You know what I mean? Like, that's where the freak side of it comes into it for me. And the same thing with Christian Watson last year. He started practicing. He was looking good. Everybody was very excited about it. And when he did finally come back, he looked good. He looked strong. He even had it tested. I think it was against the Broncos. We thought he got hurt again, and he came back and he was good. So I think that's more along the lines. People saying he's going to be out for half the season. That's just, I think that's crazy. I just don't think that's realistic at all. And it's dramatic, in my opinion. So yeah, I would say week 6, maybe week 7, right? Like, let's say there's an abundance of caution, but that means you're without him for 6 games. That's with him for 11 games. That's not half the season. Say just worst case scenario, you can't win a game without Micah. You can go 11-6, right? Like, let's not be unrealistic about it. You can go 11-6. That could happen. But I first of all don't think you're going to go 0-6 without Micah. I think that's a little dramatic as well. But I look at it like that. That's probably your return table. I don't think it's end of October. I think it's probably about 3 weeks after week 3 when he can start practicing again. And you see from there, once he gets on the field, that's when you're really going to know. Until then, you're not. Like, he's going to feel great when he's working out by design. Like, that's, unless there's a setback, he's going to feel great working out because he's not going to do anything to threaten it. He's not going to be out there doing any of these crazy, bend drills or anything like that. He's going to be doing things to strengthen his knee, his legs, and his movements. So he's going to feel good leading up into that. Once you start doing football movements at football speed, that's when you'll have a good idea. And again, just him being a freak athlete that he is, I don't think that's going to take much. I don't. And, we've seen certain guys, come back and take a lot longer. I really think the ones that end up having that issue are the ones who try to come back too aggressively. Oh, I'm looking good. I'm feeling good. I'm going to get back in there. Okay. But he seems to be taking a very sensible approach about it. He's, saying the playoffs is what matters. Of course. Absolutely. His longevity is what matters. No doubt about it. No argument for me. I'm not going to sit here and be mad as a fan if he's just not back in time, or if I'm wrong and he's back at the end of October. Look, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I just don't think that's what's going to happen. And I think the people who are saying that at certain large sports organization media companies that we won't give any kind of shout outs to are being dramatic. Half the season is just dramatic. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, just doing the math. He talked about 9 months. 9 months is the end of September. I think you see him start to practice that week after week 3 and go from there and feel it out from there. But I'm looking at week 6. I'm looking at that Cowboys game going, unless something goes wrong, I think he's back there. It's at Lambeau. It's against the Cowboys. It's, 3 weeks of practice. It's well past the 9-month mark. That's where I think I'm at, but we'll see as we go. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of meaningful updates about that. Throughout the off season, there's not much you can get, but yeah, that's where I'd be at with that. I'm interested to kind of see how he continues to report, like what does he talk about doing and how he's feeling and all that. Certainly seen some videos that look pretty encouraging as far as his workouts go. The other thing is, I think we're being a little bit too negative about the people we have outside of Micah. And we talked last week about the defense. I'm very encouraged about the progress of Baron Sorrell. I'm very encouraged about LVN. I don't think there's any reason why LVN can't come out and be the player he was drafted to be. Anybody who's saying he just can't, it's like he's still a young guy. Like, you can't just write the guy off. Injuries happen, and we've talked about that at pretty much every position at this point. Even Jordan Love has had injuries. So it's just part of the modern day game. Like, you just can't avoid them. Nobody can. But I think we got to leave room for optimism on the D line here and say that these guys can hold their own until Micah gets back. And when Micah gets back, all hell breaks loose, man. Like that, all bets are off because he's that much of a freak. He's that much of an athlete and a problem for opposing offensive lines and quarterbacks. He's going to change the game a lot like Christian Watson changes the game on the offensive side of the ball. You got to account for him on every play. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, those are the updates from OTAs. Let's jump into our depth chart review here for the offense, starting with the receivers, since we'd already talked a lot about Christian Watson. Is the receiver depth a good thing? So this is something that, all the Twitterverse loves to talk about. The Packers don't have receiver 1. They got 5 receiver 2s. It's been that way for a long time, so that's nothing new. But first of all, I think Christian Watson is the receiver 1 type. Whether he's receiver 1 in every game or not, I don't think is relevant. He's the receiver 1 type. He's the guy that defenses cannot leave alone. And if you do, you will pay for it. And we've seen what happens when that happens. But yeah, so I'm encouraged about the way that this receiver room has shaped up. And let's just get the depth chart pulled up here. Here we go. Here we go. Look at that beautiful thing there. Shout out to ourlads.com. These guys putting up a nice depth chart there for us to work with. But I'm very encouraged with how this is shaped out. You've moved on from Dobbs. You've moved on from Wicks. I think it was a little crowded before, and you needed to see who was going to really, find their way to the top. I think they kept the right guys, and no shade to Dobbs or Wicks. I think both of those guys had good times with the Packers, but this is the group to me that feels right. I think it's the right skill set and skill variety, with all sorts of potential, right? So with Watson being there, you got Golden there, you got Reed there, your top three, and then you've got Savion Williams coming in. And I think people forget how big he is. He's 6'4", 6'5", in that range, 225. He's a big dude. He is a big dude, and he's fast. So I really would love to see them use him as more than a gadget guy. He might be the biggest gadget guy I can think of in recent history. I'd love to see them use some of his ability from the slot, send him on deep, out routes, deep corner routes, deep post routes to use that size against DBs and get those mismatches. And again, you're going to have distractions. Defenses are going to have to account for those other top three guys. And then you got Bo Melton, who's officially a receiver again, and Sky Moore. I think those are your top six. Your practice squad guys in Isaiah Nayer, Will Shepherd, Jacoby Keeney James. I was about to read that backwards. Those guys, I don't, and then you've got Brendan Rice back there, the son of the GOAT, Jerry Rice, undisputed
the fumbler.
Man, if there's anybody I'm rooting for, it's that guy. I would love to see him turn into something just because I'm such a Jerry Rice fan. And then, Michael Sturdivant might be the darling UDFA that actually could make the team here. But I think your top six are pretty solidified. Short of injuries happen, I don't know that there's a whole lot of room to compete with those guys. Sky Moore probably contributes the most as a returner, but he was drafted, I think, in the second round, wasn't he? With the Chiefs, as a receiver. Yeah. I mean, he was drafted pretty high to be a receiver in this league, not a returner. So he's got that pedigree. It just never really materialized. But I really like the skill variety you've got in the room here. There's a lot you can do with it. I think, again, the problem with the offense is the identity. Who are you? What are you? And I want to see if I can find the comment from our friend R. Showers here. You said something about here we go. So I wish we had if I had one wish, it would be that we develop a short passing game to give Love more easy throws to endure less heat from a questionable O-line and use Savion in that too. Boy, do I agree. I would love if they picked up some of that hot slant game that the early 2010s Packers with Rodgers, like that 2011, those guys like the Greg Jennings, Donald Driver, those hot slants. Oh my goodness. Please give me some of that, man. Give me some of that slant game where they just pop up, dump the ball, and let these guys go. Because I think that's what you have in Jaden Reed and Matthew Golden specifically, but definitely Savion Williams with his size. Get those guys cooking in those quick games, because that is so frustrating for a defense to try to defend. I want to see that so badly. And I think that we have really missed that with LaFleur. And I think if LaFleur's got a blind spot, that's definitely one of them. He's, for whatever reason, just allergic to that quick slant game. This receiving core, that could be a strength of theirs if they could adopt that identity. I would love to see that. But most of all, you've got the right kind of guys to stretch the field. So you can take Golden on one side, Christian Watson on the other, and send them deep. Get those safeties stretched out, get those DBs stretched out, and let the guys underneath eat. Let Reed, let Tucker Kraft underneath eat in wide open spaces. That's how I envision the depth of this receiver room. And again, I don't see a whole lot of room past that top six for those guys to break in and do much, earn a job short of the practice squad. But again, injuries happen. So we'll see. But I do like the depth there. All those guys are pretty strong as far as your depth pieces can be. Sturdivant has looked good in OTAs. Nair and Shepard have really earned their spot on the practice squad. They've been pretty solid. So I like it. I like the depth top to bottom in this room. It could be a very good thing if LaFleur will get out of his own way and use them properly. And again, the theme of this episode, the Packers have a problem nobody wants to talk about, and it is identity. This group can give you an identity if you just use it. So your thoughts, Tim. I don't mean to exhaust the room for you.
Yeah, so I'll just start with the receiver part of it, and the bigger picture we'll get to in a little bit. But the receiver part of it, I just think they've streamlined the room. They drafted all those receivers back-to-back years, Watson and Dobbs and Wicks and Reed, and like they were never going to be able to keep all those guys. It's just financially you can't. They're going to want to get more touches. They're going to want to get more reps. Like you weren't able to keep everybody happy, and then you weren't able to pay everybody. Like we knew that going in. They chose Reed and they chose Watson. You let Dobbs leave as a free agent. You trade Wicks. Like you chose what you chose, and I agree with the guys that they chose. And now it's a streamlined receiver room because Reed's going to be your slot guy, and then your two outside guys are Watson and Golden. They're going to get the majority of the targets from a receiver standpoint, not factoring in Tucker Kraft, because we'll talk about the tight ends a little bit separately from the receivers. And then you hope that Savion Williams is the next guy up. Maybe Sky Moore has some kind of a factor there at receiver. I don't know. I think he's mainly obviously going to be here to return kicks if he makes the team. Does he do anything on offense? Potentially. But we'll see if he can show anything in preseason and get that opportunity. Bo Melton's a factor. The practice squad guys from last year are back. Sturdivant was the undrafted free agent. Maybe one of those guys can factor in and steal a roster spot, but it's probably a long shot barring an injury or just somebody having a poor camp and losing a roster spot. But I just think what they had been in previous years, like such a heavy rotation at receiver, and they got to get all these different guys touches. And there's been things over the years about it hasn't been real, I guess, public, but there's been little flare-ups. Dobbs a couple years ago with skipping out on the team in practice and then getting himself suspended. And Jaden Reed at times has questioned his role. And I think Wicks had some questions about his role as well. So like not everybody's been happy about sharing reps and sharing catches and targets. So now you've streamlined it to the point where you kind of know what the pecking order is going to be, and you don't have to have as heavy of a rotation, and you don't have to feed so many mouths like you did before. You know who your guys are, and I think that can help them. I also think it helps that they chose Watson and Reed, and I think those were the right choices. And then we see the potential of what Golden can be. And he needs more playing time, and he needs the ball. I know everybody wants to blame LaFleur and the offense for not getting Golden the ball enough last year. And there's some of that, but I also don't think that he was ready for a huge workload or a huge target share. Like he was screwing up routes and making mistakes. And he's a rookie. Like, those guys don't always come in and have, a Justin Jefferson rookie season or something like that. Like it takes time. No. So would we have liked to have seen more? Yeah, of course. But I think some of that falls on Matthew Golden too. But now it's time to take the second year step and find more consistency and hopefully have his breakout season. But I like the top three guys. We'll see about Savion Williams. I didn't really like that pick when they made it, but I'm willing to give it a chance. I hate how they used him last year as this gadget guy who every time he came on the field, you knew he was getting the ball, and it wasn't really as a receiver. It was, we're going to hand it to him, or we're going to throw a bubble screen to him, or we're going to give him the touch pass where he's coming in motion. Sometimes it worked, but it was just way too predictable, and it wasn't making good use of some of his talents. They need to develop him strictly as a receiver. And then if you can add those other things, great. And you can take advantage of that, but like you need to make him a receiver. You need to be able to go out there and run the routes and have the trust of his quarterback and his offense to produce that way. He can't just be a gadget guy as a third round pick. We saw some flashes of that. He did make some plays the second half of the year before the injury caught up to him and cost him the end of the season. But they need more out of him, a lot more. So I'm interested to see what he can be. I'm just kind of skeptical because I think he needs a lot of work as a receiver, and they also need to kind of they need a lot of work as far as how to use him. And maybe that's one of the things they look back on last season and can learn from is they were doing too much horizontal stuff with him and too much of the gimmick stuff. They need to just get back to developing him at receiver. That's what I hope for. And then beyond that, again, maybe one of the practice squad guys from last year, maybe Sturdivant, maybe Bo Melton factors in at receiver, but I think it's going to be those top 3 guys, then Williams, and then, a battle there for 5, 6, though obviously if Sky Moore makes the team as a receiver or as a returner, he's also going to be receiver too. I just don't expect him to contribute a whole lot of that role. But I like the top 3. I think they got a ton of potential and you can do a lot with them. And a lot of it's, obviously Watson's got to be on the field to unlock everything. But it's definitely going to be different. And ultimately, though, I'm fine with the decisions that they've made. And as far as setting it up this way, now it's time to go out there and produce.
Yeah, I do agree. You got to get out there and produce. And like I said, I think LaFleur has a lot to do with that. And hopefully the simplification of the room helps him do that. As we don't need to get into this right now, but LaFleur is the offensive mastermind, whether he's the offensive coordinator or not, whatever role, I can't even I'm blanking on his name. Stenovich, whatever role he plays into the game planning for the passing offense. But so I do think that the simplification of the room helps a lot, and I'm excited to see that development in year 2 of Golden and how these guys gel together. But the one thing that I see too is in the depth of this position, you've got reliability. And no, I don't want to see Bo Melton targeted on 4th down like that. No, that has to stop. That's insane. But if Bo Melton has to be on the field because somebody else is hurt or whatever it may be, he's reliable. We've seen that he can do the job. He can get it done. He's not the best in the group, but he can get it done. So, and then, Sky Moore, he's been on some good teams. He should be reliable. Savion Williams is reliable. So you've got reliability in the depth. And I think that's really important. So on to the next position here, what to do with running back. So we're not going to get into the extracurriculars about Josh Jacobs, the potential of being without him and all of that. I do think that, assuming best case scenario, he's with the team. He's not in trouble. He didn't do anything wrong. It's just a big mix up. He's one of the best in the league, man. He makes your offensive line look better than it is when you give him the ball. And I think that's something that has been not talked about very much, especially lately with his extracurriculars. But yeah, I mean, all of that aside, football being the focus here, he made the offensive line look a lot better than they should have looked. And they didn't look great, right? I'm not sitting here saying that they looked great, but there was a lot of times where he made guys miss. He got out of the backfield. He was able to force missed tackles and get the yardage that was needed to get. He's got great touchdowns on the goal line, which is something that they struggled with a few years ago, is actually scoring once they got in the red zone. Once they get in there and they give him the ball, he gets it, man. He gets it done. So him at RB1, not a whole lot to overanalyze there. He's one of the best in the league. I love Chris Brooks as RB2. And, I know that a big part of the reason that they picked him over Emmanuel Wilson, and I know that was kind of a little bit of a contentious thing. Some people would have loved to see him stay in Green Bay instead of going to Seattle. It's his pass blocking. His pass blocking ability is phenomenal. And that's something that we obviously have talked about the Packers value with the receivers blocking, but every team values a running back that is a good pass blocker. And that's something that guys will fall in the draft if they're not good pass blockers, but they're good runners. He's good. And then the times that we have seen him get the ball, he's not bad. He's had some pretty good runs as a Packer. So I really like Chris Brooks at depth at RB2 here. Oh, excuse me. So he hasn't really been talked about a whole lot because I think there's probably this idea that you don't want him to be your RB1. Fine, I get it. If Jacobs is out, do you want him to be your starter? Maybe he's not your best option, but he's not bad, man. Like again, the carries we've seen, not bad. And I'm trying to pull up his average here. He's got a 3.9 average, so not everything that you want. I guess it was that last season here. Yes. So last season before that, he had a 5.1 average. Overall in his career, he's at 4.8. But he's had some really good runs that he's got good vision when he gets the ball in his hands. He's able to again kind of make an offensive line who's not great look better than they are. So I'm pretty high on Chris Brooks, maybe more so than I should be. And then there's Marshawn Lloyd, who again, like I said with Oliver, it's like, dude, you're not real until you are. Like I hear it, and I want the best for you. I want you to be good. I want you to be who they drafted you to be. It's hard for me to believe at this point. Every time the guy touches the ball, he is truly made of glass. He touches the ball and he gets hurt. So he's one of those that I can't really even consider RB3 at this point. So I look beyond him, and you got Pierre Strong, and then you got Damian Martinez. I'm a big fan of Damian Martinez. I thought he had a great college career. I obviously have said on the show several times, I got to see him in high school down here at Louisville High School. He had a phenomenal high school career, and it was evident early on that he was going to be a great, running back with pro potential. But yeah, he's one that I would love to see get a shot with some reps in preseason. And if Lloyd stays healthy, great. But if he doesn't, I would really love to see Damian Martinez get a shot at that RB3 role. Potentially, however everything else above him shakes out with Jacobs and Brooks. But yeah, I think there's a lot of question marks, obviously, with what's going to happen at the running back position. But, as far as how deep you can go here, you've got some good depth. And Pierre Strong, he's not bad either. He's had some good runs. Looking at him, I mean, his rookie year with New England, he had 10 carries and he averaged 10 yards a carry. It's a small sample size, but it's not bad. 10 yards a carry across 10 carries is pretty solid, man. So there's some potential there. I like the guys they got. And then the other thing is if something does happen with Jacobs, it turns out that, he did something horrific and they cut him, and rightfully so, if that's the case. I trust the Packers to solve that problem. I don't think that you're going to just go into the season with what you got. There have been rumors about Alvin Kamara. I don't know if that's the move. He's 30 years old. And then going back and looking at his career, he's not been great across the season. He's definitely had some phenomenal games and some phenomenal performances. But when, you put a whole season together, he hasn't been great. So he's not going to be any better at 30 than he has been before. I just don't know if that's the answer, but there's definitely other options out there. One that we had talked about a little bit was Trey Benson. I think that would be a trade that's on the table. He's down there buried in the depth chart in Arizona at probably RB4 at best. And has a build very similar to Josh Jacobs. He's fast. He's pretty big. So that's a guy that could be intriguing, but there's several solutions out there that the Packers could make a move for if they need to move on from Jacobs. So that's kind of where I put it, is I trust them to address the situation if they need to. So what about you, man? This running back room, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, for me, I'm not going to really get into the Jacob situation. It will play out, and we'll see as it plays out. I don't think it's really the off-field part of it is really anything to get into. But on the field, one, he needs to stay healthy. He wasn't healthy the second half of last season with the knee injury. But more importantly, the offensive line needs to block for him. The run blocking was poor, or at best inconsistent last year. That, to me, you talk about identity. To me, the biggest issue for the offense is the offensive line. But we'll get to them eventually, I guess.
Yeah, we will.
Beyond Jacobs, I like Brooks. I think he's done a nice job for them since they picked him up from Miami. Pass blocking, pass catching. When he gets an opportunity to run the ball, he's done a nice job. I don't love it as running back too. I would be much more comfortable if he was your third guy, your third down back, like he's been previously. But If he has to be, okay, I think he can be passable in that role. Lloyd is such an unknown. Anything to get out of him at this point is a bonus. And I think the coaches are saying it, he's saying it. He's just got to stay on the field. Like there's all kinds of potential there. Going back to college, he's had loads of potential. It's just a matter of he's got to be healthy. He's got to stay on the field. And again, they think they may have figured out some things with what's causing his injuries. He's gotten, he visited Wisconsin. I think that was before last season, and then had more injuries. And then he went out to a specialist in California, the end of 2025. So they think it may stemmed from his torn ACL that he got when he was in college and like overcompensating for that with other muscles. And okay, like maybe that's what it is. Maybe they have some answers now and he can be healthy and stay on the field. And if he can, I think he's got the potential to be a big contributor to them as running back 2 or running back 3, but he's just got to be healthy. And until he is, he's a complete unknown. And it's really like you can't count on him. And then from there, Pierre Strong was on the practice squad last year and never really got an opportunity. Damian Fox was a guy they picked up late last season on the practice squad. He'd been drafted by the Seahawks, had a nice college career. So I think he's one to look at as like a depth guy in training camp. Maybe he can show him something. But ultimately, like I think you see how the Jacobs situation plays out. You see if Lloyd can remain healthy. And it's something you look at as training camp goes on or roster cut down time, because there's going to be backs available, whether it's through cuts, whether it's through trades. They may have to add at the position. Right now, I don't think there's any urgency to do that. The guys that are available in the street right now, it's pretty bad. It's a bunch of guys, Kareem Hunt and Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb, guys who were good like 5 or more years ago, long past their usable prime. I don't think they should have any interest in any of those guys. And I know there's maybe some guys available in trade, but I don't think you need to rush and make those trades right now. Like let's see how it plays out with the guys you have. And then I think there's going to be opportunity for them to pick up a back at some point. And they may have to do that with, obviously the situations with Jacobs off the field and with Lloyd's injury history. So if everybody's available, I feel pretty good about the running back room. It's just, will everybody be available for obviously completely different reasons?
Right.
We don't know. So, if you can tell me they're available, then yeah, I feel pretty good about Jacobs, Brooks, and Lloyd. It's very much up in the air whether they're all going to be available. So I think it's something that down the line they may have to address with, an outside acquisition.
Yeah, I agree, but yeah, largely if they're available, this is solid room right here, and your depth goes pretty deep. So we'll get a chance to see as this develops throughout the offseason as well. And I think by the end of training camp, we'll have a pretty good idea of where things are at. But yeah, so on to the next one, the tight end room, looking good. So obviously Tucker Kraft, I think we're all expecting an extension coming for him. And there's just nothing to talk about there. He could be one of the best. He is. When he's on the field, he's one of the best tight ends in the league at this point. The guy has arrived, and I can't wait to see what he looks like coming back from his injury and, what he does with a full season. Very, very excited for him. Musgrave is one that I think a lot of people have given up on. I have not. He's just not Tucker Kraft, and they've done this several times where they're going to take multiple shots at a position in a draft and hope that one of them sticks. And it doesn't really matter if it's the day 1, day 2, day 3 guy, whoever sticks, and that's the way it goes. I think Musgrave gets it held against him that he was a, round 2 guy, probably was supposed to be the guy over Tucker Kraft. He's a little bit faster kind of guy. But he's, as far as being tight end 2, it's not a bad tight end 2 option. It's really not. And you don't need him to be a superstar blocker, because Kraft is going to be a great blocker. Wiley's a great blocker. You've got your bullies. Musgrave is a matchup nightmare for for linebackers and safeties with his size and speed.
But he hasn't been.
Well,
again,
he's
never been that guy. And it's 3 years in now.
You've seen flashes, and that's the thing though, is as tight end 2, you don't really need him to be all that much. I mean, Tucker Kraft, like I said, one of the best in the league at this point. He's the guy. I don't want to see a whole lot out of Musgrave, but if we're gonna go in that 12 personnel, and you're gonna get to see the two tight ends, you can get a bad matchup with him and take advantage of him in space in certain situations. And he's a situational weapon, is I guess maybe what you call him. But as far as pass catchers, he's probably option number like 7. You know what I mean? Like he's not somebody that you're looking at to be a playmaker or a big game changer at this point. He's just a matchup nightmare for somebody's fourth linebacker or a backup safety or something like that. Somebody who's not used to being in the field, somebody you can manipulate easily. That's going to happen. So I don't dislike Musgrave. I think he's fine for tight end 2 and maybe even a rotational tight end 2 with Wiley, depending on what you need to be done. And then, you got behind him, you got Dabney, you got Swinson. RJ Maryland, I think, is one that's kind of fun to keep an eye on. And I think he's made a couple plays in OTAs already. Athletic guy for sure. He may be one that can rise up this depth chart and become a little bit more of that playmaker that we've hoped that Musgrave would be. He's not quite as tall as Musgrave, I don't think, but he's a pretty good athlete from what I understand. So, that's one that, you go looking deep in the tight end depth chart. You've got some depth here, man. You got some guys that can play, that can get it done, that you can rely on. Again, I'm not over here saying Musgrave is going to have a breakout season or something. I just think he's fair for a tight end 2. I think he's a fair option for a tight end 2, especially behind somebody like a Tucker Kraft. So I like the tight end room. Could you have done something different, brought in another guy? It looked like they might have tried to go after a few different ones, and then the options just weren't there. Sure, but this offense is not going to break because they didn't have a better tight end 2. I guess it would be my primary point. You're not going to go look back on the season and go, gosh, if we just had somebody better than Musgrave, we would have been, we would have made it. If that's where you're at, a lot of other things went wrong. Your top 4 receivers plus Tucker Kraft, and probably, again, if he's on the field, Josh Jacobs, all of those guys are options before Musgrave is, as far as the pecking order goes for me. But you feel a little different about this one, Tim.
I do. I think the GM feels a little bit different because he came out after the draft and said he wished that they would have been able to take a tight end in the draft, and they didn't. So that was something that he regretted. So I think they're probably on the lookout for another one, and I think they could use another one. Like, I agree with your point. Like, tight end 2 is not going to make or break this offense. You're absolutely right. But I don't really like the depth there. Tucker Kraft, I love. He's a stud. He'll be back, hopefully, early in training camp is what they're targeting. That's great. And I think he'll come back and be Tucker Kraft. I don't really think he'll, have any rust to knock off, or like he'll be affected by the ACL injury that he's coming back from. Like, I expect him to pick up where he left off, and I expect that he's going to get paid maybe real soon. He might be the next one in line for an extension. And that's great. But after that, I mean, Musgrave's been given plenty of opportunities, and he had a big one last year after Tucker Kraft went down, and he, again, didn't do anything with it. Yeah, and that's my problem. It's like, yeah, I can accept that he's never going to be a great blocker, and that's not why you have him here. It just, when he's on the field, you always want more from him. Like, when they do put him out there in 12 personnel, I feel like it's not the right package for him. Like, I feel like if you're going to put him in 12 personnel, he needs to be detached from the formation. Well, okay, if you're going to do that, he's got to win. He's got to win down the field. He's got to win over the middle, and he doesn't do that. Like, it's rare when he's done that in his career. And at this point, I kind of feel like he is what he is. Maybe he can get better, but I think at this point, with the number of opportunities they've given him, like, this is just what you're getting from him. And I'm fine with him on the team for another season, and then at the end of it, his contract's up, and they probably let him walk away. Fine, but I would like somebody else there as a developmental, like, number 2 to take his spot either in 26 or definitely down the line in 27, somebody that can give you the ability to block and go out and catch passes as well. Not somebody that's so one-dimensional like Musgrave is. And, like Wiley showed some flashes and did a nice job after he, was brought up from the practice squad when Kraft got hurt. So I think there's something there, like, and he can play special teams, Wiley. So I'm fine with him if he's your tight end 3. I just think it's that tight end 2 that could really use an upgrade. But yeah, it's not going to make or break their room. It'd be cool if they had a reliable tight end 2 that you could run 12 personnel with and really take advantage of. But Musgrave isn't that kind of guy. Maybe Wiley can be that with more development. I don't know. Or maybe they go out and they find their tight end, signing someone or making a trade or something like that. But I don't love the depth behind Kraft. But if Kraft comes back and he's back to being what we saw last year before the injury, I don't think it's going to matter the depth that much because he's going to play almost every snap anyway, and he's going to be a beast. So I think you can get by another year with Musgrave, but then you do need to upgrade at that position.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you on that. I think, and maybe this is kind of a terrible caveat. If Kraft is in there, the guys behind him, you have what you need. You can use the pieces you have strategically in different packages the way you want to take advantage of things. If Kraft goes down again, I agree. The depth behind him is frightening. Then you're going, oh crap. Musgrave is tight end 1. Wiley is he going to be tight end 1 in certain situations where we need more of a blocker, and we talk about Dabney and you got Swenson and you got Maryland. Yeah, I don't want to be forced to use those guys on every down situation. That is scary. And so, yeah, I think with Kraft, the guys behind him, you have good tools to work with to complement him. Without him, yeah, it's a scary situation, I think. So maybe when you're talking about depth, that may not be what you want. But I can't be mad at Goot for saying that. It would have been great for them to find one of those guys. It was a decent draft for tight ends. There was a couple good options. It just didn't pan out for them. And we can't be mad about that. We're not really upset about the draft picks they got. I think the board just fell the way it fell. And it'll be interesting to see this next offseason, what they're able to do either in free agency or in the draft, what options they can get there. All right. And we, I had the quarterbacks on here. We don't need to talk about the quarterbacks. Got Tyrod Taylor back there with Jordan Love at the starter. I think that's a good, obviously we love Jordan Love. So there's not really anything to debate there or talk about. I'm glad they brought in Tyrod Taylor, a very reliable backup. He's had good experience throughout his time in the league. And that's a guy that if Jordan Love goes down, very similar to Malik Willis, you probably have the game plan to put in there with him that can win a game if you need to. Behind him, Kyle McCord, Kyron Drones, very interesting battle for QB3. I don't have a lot of opinions about who's going to win that battle. It'll be interesting to watch. But overall, I think they've done a good job of taking care of the quarterback position here behind Jordan Love and making sure that they've got a little bit of an insurance policy and maybe a little bit of a, farm system for future QB2 situation there. But any thoughts for you?
No, I'm fine with the Taylor signing. He gives him that veteran backup that he really hasn't had. And that could be useful as well. Taylor's been through a lot. He's seen a lot in his career, seen a lot of defenses, that having somebody that's played as many games and as many reps as he has, that might be able to help Jordan Love, in game and preparation for upcoming opponents and stuff like that. Intangible stuff that he can help with. And then, I hope we never have to see Taylor play for him, other than maybe he's kneeling down at the end of a victory that they take Love out of. If he's got to play meaningful snaps, though, if you got to get through a game or two with him, I think he's the kind of quarterback that can get you through a game or two with him. And he also gives you the ability to keep some of the Malik Willis stuff. Now, Taylor doesn't run as well now as he did earlier in his career just because he's older. He's well into his 30s, and he doesn't run as well as Willis. But, he can give you some of that. He can give you some of, the movement skills. So you can keep some of that stuff in the offense. Plus, he's been in a million different offenses throughout his career. He should be able to adapt and learn pretty quickly anything that you're going to put in specifically for him if he had to play, or just overall learning an offense. So if you got to get by a couple games with Taylor, I think you can be fine. I think you can manage it, and he can manage his game and do enough to help your team to win a game without your starting quarterback if it came down to it. Hopefully it never does. But beyond that, I think it's a nice resource for Jordan Love to have. The other quarterbacks, Drones and McCord, I think it's a battle to see who the practice squad quarterback is. And if neither one of them is good enough, they'll go out and sign somebody else to the practice squad. Maybe it can be somebody that you develop down the line to eventually be a number 2 quarterback. I don't know. That would be nice. That would be great if they could do that. But I don't know if either one of these guys are good enough, talented enough to eventually, hold the number 2 job. But we'll see. At least it's providing you depth and hopefully a solid option at quarterback 3. And again, if they're not good enough, there'll be other quarterbacks getting cut around the league that the Packers can keep their eye on. But Drones has some ability. McCord, especially his last year at Syracuse, put up some awesome numbers, right? But we'll see. We'll see what they're going to be about. And they're going to play a lot in the preseason. So we'll get this, because maybe Jordan plays a little bit in those preseason games, but I think it's going to be a lot of McCord and Drones. So we're going to get to take a look at him, and they're going to get some very important reps to determine who the QB3 is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be interesting to watch them battle it out in preseason, but hopefully we don't have to see him after that this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so the hottest topic probably when it comes down to depth in this offense is, will the O-line hold up their end of the deal here? And we kind of started this episode off with a little bit of this talk, and I know we're kind of deep into this one now, but this is really, to me, where the season hinges. If these guys can take even a small step forward from where they were last year, you're going to be in a decent position, because, they weren't great last year. There was room for optimism as far as, they weren't great for this reason or that reason, and context does matter. Hopefully you get a good, full, healthy season out of Zach Tom. You get a good, full, healthy season out of Aaron Banks. And in Sean Ryan, he's been pretty durable, so I don't necessarily worry about him as far as that goes. But a consistent season at left tackle for Jordan Morgan, I think, is going to be the biggest, critical factor for this offensive line. And, you might bring up the point, we don't know if he's good. He's not been good. We haven't seen it or whatever. He's been all over the place. The guy hasn't gotten a chance to settle in at left tackle. To your point, I think you brought it up before, Tim, about when we saw him in the preseason at left tackle, he did look good. And then that was the last we saw. He went all over the board after that. So I very much look forward to him getting a full season at left tackle. And I think that if he can be consistent there and serviceable there, as good as Rasheed Walker, which, that's not necessarily asking for the world, you're going to be in good shape. I think he can protect the blind side, but, that's going to be the biggest piece for me, that if he does well, this offensive line goes. Now, we're talking about the whole depth chart, right? So we're not just talking about the front 5. You get Zach Tom. When he's healthy, he's one of the best right tackles in the league. So he's kind of your cornerstone there. I think Sean Ryan is going to be a stabilizing piece for the center position. He's not going to be like Myers was a few years ago, where, he's a liability that you're watching every week. He may not be the best center in the league, but certainly not the worst. And then you get down to Banks. And Banks, a lot of people were real critical of him last season, rightfully so. It makes a lot of money and then doesn't play well because he's hurt, or he's hurt half the season because he's not playing. I don't know if it was half the season, shouldn't say that, but point being is, you didn't necessarily get your money's worth out of him last season, and he's getting a pretty big number this season. So he's one that's like, you have to perform, man. You have to be a good left guard there. And I think if he is, you end up with him and Ryan, that's going to make Jordan Morgan's job even that much easier. And you got to believe that the front office saw something in him to give him that kind of money. I trust the front office. I trust their evaluation. We've seen them make some very good decisions. and good evaluations on the O-line. So that's where it's like, I'm gonna have hope. I'm gonna have hope that he can be what he's paid to be. And then you got your right guard position that we talked about being kind of your biggest opportunity for Yeager Burton to come in and maybe force Anthony Belton into that more of a swing tackle kind of utility backup type role. Um, and then, so, addressing more of the depth, Darian Kennard's not a bad piece. When he came in and played, he was not a liability. He stabilized the O-line. He stabilized the whole, when injuries happened. So he's one that I'm glad you got back there. He's definitely, I think, valuable as a backup. You got Jacob Monk there at backup center. He's one that I was kind of rooting for before. And when we saw him, he hadn't been great. It's definitely been inconsistent. He had some good moments. He's had some pretty bad moments. So he's one that I wonder what's going on there and what they see. I think we're going to learn a lot about him in this training camp, about what he truly is. And I think the coaches are probably feeling the same way about that. But Yeager Burton, really, his presence, if he can even threaten that right guard starting position, at the very least, it seems like you've got a really stud backup there. You've got a strong backup there that you can be excited about. And then, the other guys, Donovan Jennings, I don't know. I know that there was a little bit of, excitement about him as a UDFA, that he could be something. And it just doesn't seem like he's done much with the opportunities he's had. Same thing with Travis Glover. When we've seen him, it hasn't really been very exciting. He's been kind of a liability. So I don't know that I'm that excited about the depth there. And then, go a line further back, I don't even want to talk about it. Like those guys, I hope for the best. Like there's some names there that, could have some potential, but you just don't want to get that deep into this offensive line. If you're pulling from that third line there, you're in trouble, in my opinion. And I think any team is going to be that way. I don't know many teams that are going to go 3 deep at any offensive line position. So, that's probably not necessarily an indictment here, but I think really a good offensive line, you want to have probably a top half of the league, like a top 15 front 5, starting 5. And you want a really good, at least one utility backup guy that probably should be a starter somewhere. If you have that, you probably got a pretty solid offensive line. It's shaping up that it could be that way. I won't say that it is that way, but there's reason to believe that Jordan Morgan can stabilize at left tackle. Zach Tom, we've talked about him. We know what he is. Sean Ryan can stabilize at center. Aaron Banks should be good for the money he's getting. And then you should have a good competition for who's starting at the right guard position. And whoever loses that battle is that guy, that number 6 guy that, he could be pretty good, right? And if you have to put him in there, you're not worried about it. You're not upset about having to get that 6th guy in there for an injury. So I'm going to choose to be optimistic about this offensive line. It's definitely the biggest question mark on the offense. There's no doubt about it. But if this offensive line can be, a top 15 line, a top 15 unit, the offense is going to go, man. It's going to look really good. And so that's what I'm looking forward to, Tim, but bring me back down to reality here, man, because I know that you're worried about the unit.
Well, I mean, I agree with you in that it's the biggest question on the offense. I think it might even be the biggest question on the team, arguably. I think they need to be a lot better than 15th to get where we hope that they can get to this year, right? Like, I don't think 15th is good enough. Like, I don't think that's going to be good enough to get this team very deep in the playoffs, unless other factors step up to like mitigate that. I think you need to be better than that, and I don't know if they can be. I have concerns about it. There's things I'm optimistic or I want to be optimistic about, but there's so many what ifs with this offensive line, or if this happens and if this and if that. Like, it's hard when you got that many questions on such an important area of your team. I like Jordan Morgan. I like what I saw out of him at left tackle in the preseason and training camp last season. I like that he got better consistently each week that he played there. I don't like that after that they never played him there again. And I don't want to hear, well, the coaches didn't think he was good enough. No, that's bullshit. They didn't put him out there because They wanted Rasheed Walker. They were comfortable with the veteran who had done it before being their left tackle. And I also think that his free agency status played a factor in that as well. They wanted him out there. They were looking at that comp pick, and they were looking at it like, all right, we're going to have another season of Rasheed at left tackle. He'll be okay. And then we let him walk, and it's Morgan's job. Well, he wasn't okay. Rasheed Walker had a down year, and particularly had a really bad playoff game against the Bears.
Yeah.
At some point in the season, Morgan should have at least been rotating with him at left tackle, if not just given that job. Why they never did that, and I know eventually there were injuries on the offensive line, but like it should have been that way from week one. I'll never understand it, but he's at left tackle now. He's proven he's not good enough at guard. I get that. I'm not debating that. But he did. Jason Wilde had a really good article last week. He talked to Morgan after the OTA practice, and Morgan was like, "Yeah, I was always a left tackle, never played inside, and took one for the team. They wanted me there. I tried to make the best of it, but he knew he struggled there. But he's really confident in himself at left tackle. He sounds incredibly excited to get out there and show what he can do at left tackle." And that's his comfort spot. That's the position he knows the best. And he feels like he's going to be able to be, what we were hoping he would be when they drafted him in the first round. So he's one of the most important players on the team this season. I hope he can at least be a solid left tackle. We'll say, I don't think it's major shoes to fill with what we just got out of Rasheed Walker last season, because he wasn't very good. After being a pretty solid left tackle, he had a drop off last season, but he's an unknown. Banks got better later in the year once he was healthier, but he definitely didn't live up to the contract that they gave him.
Right.
He needs to be better. And number one, he needs to be healthier, but he needs to be better. Sean Ryan did a nice job at center. Now, can he be long-term their starting center? I think that's still a pretty big unknown. Like, this is the same guy you were trying to replace at right guard for several seasons, right? Like, now you're comfortable with him at center. I don't know. He did show you some things, and now, like, he was kind of thrown in at center on the fly. Now he knows the position a little more. He can work at it, and the reps will help him. Like, can he make improvements? He could. I don't know, like, that he's like how good he's going to be. But if he's just a solid center, I'll take that. I think that's worth bringing him back. Belton's another.
Gave him the extension. I mean, they didn't do that for no reason.
Right. And I think he can, like, can he be better than what Josh Myers was? Yeah, I think he could do that, and that's worth the investment they made in him. And then Belton was another one. Like, we were saying it last season, preseason, like, why aren't you playing this guy at guard too? Like, he was just strictly a tackle. Everybody thought coming out in draft, like, eventually he would have to be a guard. So, like, why weren't they doing it? And then they were sticking him at tackle. And then we finally see him at guard, and it's halfway through the season, and they kind of had just thrown him in there, and not much practice reps before he had to go in and start against the Lions. And it was like, why wasn't this, like, why hasn't he been repping there before? And again, along with the Morgan stuff, which it's just a head scratcher. But I'm hoping with, being able to rep at that position, and I know they're still repping him at tackle, and that's fine, but like, that's going to be his main position where he's going to be playing. It looks like the increased reps and the playing time there and just getting comfortable with the position will help him. It also sounds like he's lost a little bit of weight, or at least gotten his body into better shape, which is a great sign as well. So he's working hard in the offseason, and that can help him. But, man, the pass protection at guard last year was not good for Belton. Like, he had some really poor reps and really poor games there. He's got to get a lot better, but maybe it's just the experience of being able to get comfortable at guard can help him. Zach Tom, I expect to be Zach Tom, so I don't, want to say that much about him. But then, yeah, the depth after that it's a huge question mark. We talked about Burton already, and I think Burton can be somebody that factors in, and that maybe he's their swing interior guy. Maybe he ends up stealing somebody's starting job at some point during the season. Who knows? But he's a player. I really like the pick, and I think they're going to find, another day 3 lineman that's going to be a contributor. Kennard, I think in an ideal scenario, he's not like your next guy up off the like. I think he needs to go down like a rung on the depth chart, but he's where he's at now. I think he's guard, right tackle. I can't. If something happens to Morgan, I don't think it's Kennard at left tackle. I think it would either be Belton or Tom would kick over. But yeah, I'm okay with Kennard. After that, I don't know who you got. Like I haven't seen it out of Jacob Monk in a couple years. Donovan Jennings didn't look good in preseason last year, and he was kind of like a bottom of the roster guy who was like, the healthy inactives every week. Like who knows? Like they see something to keep him around all year, but I don't know. Glover played his rookie year and barely got on the field until all the injuries struck in that playoff game against the Eagles, and he looked like a rookie in that game, and then he missed the entire 2025 season. So he's a complete unknown too, but they seem to like Glover a lot. And then after that, can John Williams, who was a draft pick last year, missed the entire year, can he show you something at guard or center? They have some undrafted guys who were interesting signings, and the kid from Illinois, Getsky, and Wade too. They signed. Maybe they're a UDFA surprise, but yeah, there's not much depth there. And that's even considering like I think Burton's going to be pretty good for them, but Kennard, okay, and then after that, like you're really hoping for no injuries, or you're hoping to find somebody that really develops their game here in the off season and training camp that you feel better about. But looking at it right now, it's the depth is real thin on the offensive line.
Yeah, and this to me feels like it could be similar to what they've done with the receiver position, where there was last season there was more, kind of question marks. Like there was injuries that then you bring in Banks, and how does he fit in? And I see all of that, right? And now it seems like they've settled in. It's like, all right, Morgan's at left tackle, Banks at left guard, Sean Ryan at center. You've got guys where it's like, this is the guy for this position, and we don't really have a whole lot of need to shuffle that around. There's not a whole lot we need to figure out about, can this guy do that or go here? It's more about, can you stay healthy? And I think if you stay healthy, this is your starting five, maybe with room for Burton to beat out Belton. And if that's the case and you can stay healthy, then I think this could be a good unit. I really do. And consistency is a big deal for the offensive line. These guys got to learn how each other works and how to rely on each other. That's a big factor beyond just even ability. It's understanding who's going to do what in what situation, and how you have to go off of that. So if these guys can just stay together, I think that they will be a good unit, and they'll be able to hold up their end of the deal for this offense and let Love do what he needs to do.
It can only help. It can only help.
Right. Right.
You got to build those reps together in that chemistry, and they never really able to do that last year because of injuries and a guy like a guy like Belton learning a new position on the fly.
Right. So that's where I think that, this to me feels similar to the receiver position, where guys are going to settle into their spot. There's not a whole lot of rotation and figuring out to do. It's just more of, can you stay healthy and have that consistency? And if you can, I think that they'll get the job done. Man, so we're pretty late in this episode here. We've gone about an hour and a half. And I've got to address some of the issues in the comments here. Tim, you're over here intimidating me with your new look, and I don't want to be guilty of not addressing that. So I love what you got going on here, man. It's tough. And is it true you're going to get a teardrop? Is that coming in?
Oh my God, the comments tonight. You grow a little bit of a beard, and everybody goes crazy. I didn't know my look was so
tough,
important
man.
here.
You're intimidating me over here. I'm getting nervous. I'm sweating a little bit.
There's way too much gray in the beard, so there should be you shouldn't be intimidated by that. I don't know. Sometimes you just need a new look. You gotta, freshen things up a little bit. Gotta get a little stale. You gotta freshen up the look a little bit, I guess. But I didn't know it was gonna be such a thing. Jeez.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was taking some shots over here. These guys saying that, I'm weak for not acknowledging it. So I don't want to be accused of being weak here. I gotta step up to the plate. I mean, not intimidated here. I gotta be tough with you. But no, I
Your
like it.
beard's
I
much
approve.
better than mine. Like, I mean, come on now. If we're talking beards, like this is just
I just
getting
think you got to give
started
yours
here.
more of a chance to come in, man. Come on.
I am. I haven't touched it. It's coming in. It's just, it's not coming in the color that I want it to come in. So
Fair enough. Hey, I can't explain mine. I've got 3 kids and all sorts of situations over here that I should have several patches of gray and white coming in. I feel like I've earned it, and it's not there. So I don't know what to make of that either, man. But no, I think bring it in. Let's be the beard bros over here.
all right, maybe I keep that's my off-season project, right? Like
There we go.
there's no Packers football. I'm just gonna grow the beard until there's
Work hard
Packers
at it.
football again, real Packers football, beyond mini camps and OTAs. Like, just focus on the beard.
It's not a playoff beard, it's an off-season beard.
Yes, the off-season beard, doing the reverse.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, look, I think we solved all of the offensive problems here. Again, my whole issue is the identity. I hope they find their identity. It seems like they're taking steps to doing that, but we also are in the middle of the offseason here. We got to find out. We got to strap in to find out. And we got minicamp to do that here this week. So we'll see some more things, maybe get some good interviews and learn a few more things. See guys playing at different positions, 1s, 2s, who's with what. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like they're taking a step in the right direction, more so than they had last year. Before it was figure it out. Now I think they've figured it out, and it's time to run full speed ahead. So come on back with us next week, guys. If you had fun, this is you're still listening and hanging out with us. You're awesome.
Come
We
back
love you.
Come back next week. The status on my beard. We got to do a beard check next week.
And you might have that teardrop tattoo too, right?
And that too. I might. We'll see.
Come on back and hit that subscribe button for us. Spike that like button. That helps too. And definitely bring a friend. Tell your Packers fan friends. Tell your NFC North fan friends. Come hang out. Talk some trash with us. Shout out to our guy, Matthew Tan, hanging out. He's always in there saying hi. He says, Carly says hi. Go, Pack, go. All that stuff. Appreciate you, brother. And, of course, our Showers and Chris the Casual. You guys are always hanging out. Love it. And we will certainly be back next week, Monday night, 9:30, streaming live, talking more Pack, finding out what happened in minicamp, and hopefully maybe talking a little bit of a Tucker Craft extension. I know it feels like that's coming up, so hopefully that's on the table. And just always appreciate you guys, and of course, go